Cristiano Ronaldo was preparing for the biggest final of his twilight career. The stadium was packed to the brim, floodlights bathing the pitch in golden brilliance. But this wasn't going to be an ordinary final night. For weeks, whispers had circulated through the club about something hidden beneath the stadium in the forgotten tunnels where no one had ventured for years. They spoke of a box, concealed in the darkness below. What lay inside remained a complete mystery, shrouded in decades of speculation and fear. Some said it was treasure from the stadium's founding days. Others whispered of something far more sinister. The day before the match, a mysterious envelope appeared in the dressing room. No one saw who left it. Inside, scrawled in fading ink, were just 7 words: "If you want to win, find the box." Ronaldo initially dismissed it as a prank from nervous teammates. But that night, everything changed. As darkness fell over the empty stadium, he began hearing sounds, the unmistakable thud of a football being kicked, echoing through the deserted corridors. The sounds came from places where no one should be, at hours when the building was locked tight. It was as if invisible players were training in the shadows. Sleep evaded him that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard those haunting echoes, the phantom footsteps racing across an unseen pitch. The whispers of his teammates suddenly didn't seem so far-fetched. Something was stirring in the depths of the stadium. The final day arrived with an electric atmosphere. 90,000 fans filled every seat, their chants reverberating through the concrete bowl. But Ronaldo felt different, distracted, haunted by the previous night's mysterious sounds. His usual pre-match confidence was shadowed by an inexplicable dread. The first half was brutal. Both teams fought with desperate intensity, neither willing to give an inch. By halftime, the scoreboard showed a frustrating deadlock. As players trudged toward the tunnel, exhausted and tense, Ronaldo noticed something that made his blood run cold. The locked door behind the dressing room, the one that had been sealed for as long as anyone could remember, stood ajar. The first half was brutal. Both teams fought with desperate intensity, neither willing to give an inch. By halftime, the scoreboard showed a frustrating deadlock. As players trudged toward the tunnel, exhausted and tense, Ronaldo noticed something that made his blood run cold. The locked door behind the dressing room, the one that had been sealed for as long as anyone could remember, stood ajar. A thin sliver of darkness beckoned from beyond, releasing air that felt decades older than the rest of the building. The mysterious envelope's words echoed in his mind: "Find the box." Against every instinct screaming at him to stay away, curiosity proved stronger than fear. He slipped away from his teammates and approached the door. The metal handle was ice cold despite the warm evening, and it opened with a groan that seemed to come from the bowels of the earth itself. Beyond lay a narrow tunnel, its walls lined with crumbling brick and rusted pipes. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows that danced with each step he took. The air grew thicker, mustier, carrying scents of decay and forgotten years. His footsteps echoed strangely, as if the sound was being swallowed by the darkness ahead. Deeper he ventured, following the tunnel as it wound beneath the stadium's foundations. The walls were covered in decades of grime and strange stains that looked disturbingly dark in the dim light. Occasionally, he passed alcoves filled with rusted equipment and abandoned maintenance tools, relics from the stadium's construction. Then he heard them again, the footsteps. But this time, they weren't distant echoes. They were close, matching his own pace, as if someone was walking alongside him in the shadows. When he stopped, they stopped. When he moved, they moved. His heart hammered against his ribs as he realized he wasn't alone in these forgotten depths. A whisper drifted through the air, so soft he almost convinced himself it was just the wind through the pipes. But words formed in the darkness, spoken in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "He's here. He's finally here." The temperature plummeted, and his breath began to mist in the suddenly frigid air. At the tunnel's end, illuminated by a single flickering bulb, sat a rusted chest. Its metal surface was corroded with age, and strange symbols were carved into its lid, symbols that hurt to look at directly, as if they were designed to repel the human eye. This had to be the box from the legend. Ronaldo's hands trembled as he approached. The chest radiated an aura of wrongness that made his skin crawl, but the compulsion to open it was overwhelming. Its metal surface was corroded with age, and strange symbols were carved into its lid, symbols that hurt to look at directly, as if they were designed to repel the human eye. This had to be the box from the legend. Ronaldo's hands trembled as he approached. The chest radiated an aura of wrongness that made his skin crawl, but the compulsion to open it was overwhelming. His fingers found the latch, which clicked open with surprising ease, as if it had been waiting for this moment for decades. Inside, nestled in rotting velvet, lay 3 items that defied explanation. An ancient football, its leather cracked and stained with something dark that definitely wasn't mud. A pair of weathered football boots, their studs worn down to nubs, still caked with earth from games played long ago. And beneath them, a note written in what looked like dried blood. The message was brief but chilling: this pitch has never been innocent. The game demands its price. Tonight, the debt comes due. As he read the words, the temperature dropped further, and the lights began to flicker more violently. Somewhere in the darkness, he heard the sound of a crowd cheering, but it was wrong, distorted, like voices calling from another world. Ronaldo tried to back away from the chest, but found himself frozen in place. The ancient football began to glow with an unholy light, and the worn boots started to twitch as if invisible feet were trying to fill them. The blood-written note crumbled to dust in his hands, the words burning themselves into his memory. A new sound joined the phantom cheers, the thud of a ball being kicked, over and over, growing louder and more insistent. The rhythm matched his heartbeat exactly, as if something was trying to synchronize with his very life force. The walls around him seemed to pulse in time with the sound. Suddenly, the spell broke. Terror finally overcame curiosity, and Ronaldo stumbled backward, fleeing toward the tunnel entrance. Behind him, he could hear the chest slam shut with a sound like thunder, followed by laughter that seemed to chase him through the darkness. He ran blindly, no longer caring about stealth or discovery. He burst through the door back into the dressing room, gasping and wild-eyed. His teammates looked up in surprise at his disheveled appearance, but before anyone could ask questions, the second half whistle sounded. There was no time to explain, no time to process what he had experienced in the depths below. As he walked back onto the pitch, everything felt different. The crowd's cheers seemed muted, as if he was hearing them through thick glass. The floodlights cast shadows that moved independently of their sources, and the grass beneath his feet felt spongy and wrong, like walking on a graveyard. His opponents' faces had changed too. Their eyes held a vacant, hollow quality, and their movements seemed mechanical, puppet-like. When they spoke, their voices carried an echo that didn't belong in the open air. It was as if the curse from below had seeped upward, infecting everything it touched. The ball itself felt different when it came to him, heavier, colder, and it seemed to resist his touch. Every pass felt like a struggle against an invisible force, every shot like fighting through molasses. The game that had once been second nature to him now felt alien and hostile. As the match progressed, the wrongness intensified. Players on both sides began moving in patterns that defied the rules of football, running in circles, passing to empty spaces, shooting at goals that weren't there. The referee seemed oblivious, continuing to officiate a game that was rapidly becoming something else entirely. The crowd's chants changed too, becoming rhythmic and hypnotic, words in languages that predated the stadium by centuries. The sound washed over the pitch in waves, and with each wave, reality seemed to bend and twist a little more. The scoreboard flickered between numbers that made no sense, displaying scores from games that had never been played. Ronaldo found himself drawn toward a particular spot on the pitch, directly above where he estimated the cursed chest to be. The grass there was different, darker, more lush, as if it was feeding on something buried deep below. When he stood on that spot, he could feel the pulse of whatever lay beneath, matching his heartbeat once again. The final 20 minutes of the match dissolved into chaos. Players ran in formation patterns that formed strange geometric shapes on the pitch, their movements guided by an intelligence that wasn't their own. The ball multiplied and divided, sometimes 3 or 4 balls in play at once, sometimes none at all. Through it all, the crowd continued their otherworldly chanting, their faces turned upward to the night sky as if they were no longer watching the game, but participating in some ancient ritual. The floodlights began to strobe in patterns that hurt the eyes, casting the entire stadium in an epileptic nightmare of light and shadow. And then, in the dying moments of injury time, everything stopped. The players froze mid-run, the crowd fell silent, even the wind ceased to blow. In that moment of absolute stillness, Ronaldo heard a voice speak directly into his mind: the game is complete. The debt is paid. Welcome to the eternal match. The stadium lights went out all at once, plunging everything into total darkness. When they flickered back on moments later, the crowd was gone. The pitch was empty except for the players, and the scoreboard displayed a result that would never be recorded in any official record: home 6, away 6, with a third column showing symbols instead of numbers. Ronaldo looked around at his teammates, seeing in their eyes the same confusion and terror he felt. They were no longer just players in a football match, they had become part of something much older and more sinister. The curse that had slept beneath the stadium for decades had finally claimed its prize. As security guards rushed onto the pitch, Trying to restore order to what appeared to be a mass hallucination, Ronaldo realized the truth. This hadn't been his final match, it had been his first in a game that would never end, played on a pitch that existed somewhere between the world of the living and whatever lay beyond. The ancient chest far below pulsed with satisfaction, its purpose finally fulfilled. The stadium had its players, the curse had its vessels, and somewhere in the shadows between dimensions, an eternal match was about to begin.